Terrence Gray. I'm the founder of the festival. And with me, just a great executive and a great friend of NYTVF from IFC, the VP of Development, Mr. Dan Pasternack. Thank you for being here, Dan. I don't have a bio. I feel unprepared, but I'm just going to talk about some recent announcements that I think were pretty darn awesome. IFC recently premiered Out There, new animated series, which is on Friday at 10, which is awesome.
What was that airtime?
The time? Fridays?
Fridays?
At 10 p.m.
Oh, good. Okay, now I'll set my DVR. Good, thank you.
Soon to be joining the IFC lineup, Marin, based on Mark Maron's hit podcast. That premiered originally, the original pilot, at the New York Television Festival.
Yes, it did.
Which was awesome. The Spoils of Babylon, starring an upstart Will Ferrell.
Yes, I believe that's how that's pronounced. Okay. Yes, Will Ferrell. Yes.
And a new sketch show with Ben Stiller and Bob Odenkirk, the Birthday Boys. Just like an embarrassment of riches, which is awesome. So start off, Dan, and thank you again for being here. Sort of in broad strokes, what makes a good TV show for IFC?
When I first came to IFC, which was a little over 3 years ago, there was a lot of conversation about kind of what the IFC comedy brand would be. And the landscape really had the broadcast networks. You had TBS, if you're sort of looking across an axis of sort of where original comedy would be, which felt like sort of broadcast on basic cable. And then you had kind of Comedy Central, very young, very male, and you had Adult Swim, which was very, very specific in terms of sort of young male, but with a much more absurdist, surrealistic kind of flavor to it. And then you had, excuse me, like HBO Showtime, which we sort of felt was more like dramedies, and FX, which kind of felt like premium cable on basic cable. And I think the words that kept being bandied about, and when I walked in the door, I don't think people really necessarily associated specific tenets to these words, but people kept talking about alternative comedy. And I just wanted to be very literal about that and really be an alternative, because I sort of felt like we're a little network, you know, you kind of have to go looking for us, you know, way, 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 way up on the cable dial. And we got to give people a reason to come all the way up there. Being small and being scrappy, I kind of looked at as a great opportunity. I also looked at the kind of programming that IFC had acquired and some of the movies that had done well, the comedic movies that had done well on the network. So, like Arrested Development had been an acquisition, an off-network acquisition that IFC was airing to some real success. And they had just done this great documentary about Monty Python. They were airing all this Python stuff. And I'm somewhat reductive sometimes in my thinking, and the words that kept coming to mind were smart and silly. So I just said, if we can be unafraid to be smart and unashamed to be silly, that's kind of a great mission statement for us. And I think that governed a lot of our early development conversations and a lot of the first things that we looked to, you know, as like that first wave of development when I came in.
The follow-up, and I think this is an easy question to probably answer. What makes you say yes?
How do you mean? Usually starts with a couple of drinks.
I'm going to take that down.
He's blushing, by the way, if you guys can't see that. He is bright red right now.
Just hot, I'm wearing a sweater.
Yes, and you do look hot in that sweater. Honestly, I'm very lucky to have the job I have, because truly, I love everything we're doing. I truly do. That is a great gift. And, you know, I think we're in the business of cult hits. So when I look at a show and I feel like, could this be on 7 other networks? Then we probably shouldn't do it, because it's not an alternative. Is it smart and silly? Does it feel like that voice that we are trying to achieve? You know, does it meet that aspirational bar that we set? Is there talent involved that we're excited to work with? You know, it's a combination of an idea of, you know, the auspices and the talent. And does it feel right for us? You know, I look to the sort of development mandate of a place like Adult Swim, where everything they did was very specific to their intention of who they wanted to be. And people will get excited about a new Adult Swim show because there is an affection for that brand. I feel like if there's something that can live within that family portrait of what we see IFC's, you know, brand and mission statement to be, you know, that's usually the beginning of where, you know, I start getting excited.
Yeah. And tonight, sort of overall on the evening, we're talking about character and the development of character. And do you see that, you know, sort of on the chart, is that as important as story, and sort of where do you place the two when you're developing?
Well, interestingly, character can be the voices of the individual characters, the literal characters within the show, but I also think of character as the voice of the show itself. Portlandia is really a great example for us. Thank you. That was literally probably the first show that I developed at IFC. Interestingly, when it came in, it was not Portlandia, it was not Portland-centric, it was Broadway Video and Fred Armisen and Carrie Brownstein. Fred and Carrie had made these little web videos under their Thunder Ant brand that they created, and it was really just Fred and Carrie wanting to do these fun two-person sort of Nichols and May-like sketches. The characters were very specific. You know, one of the first sketches that you can see that they did as Thunder Ant was the feminist bookstore. But interestingly, when we engaged with them in a conversation, you know, Carrie lived in Portland, and they made these videos in Portland, and all of these characters felt like they belonged in this world that was specific to Portland, but not necessarily exclusive to Portland. So in the conversations we had with them, we sort of said, well, why not make the show in Portland and kind of have all these characters that all feel like they kind of would know each other and probably live within blocks of each other. Why not just set it there and give that, you know, make that be like an organizing principle? And then Jonathan Kreisel.
It's all right, it's getting serious now. Go ahead, Dennis.
Ask me again what makes me say yes. Now. Ask me now. Ask me now, Terrence.
Thank you, guys. We'll just keep rolling.
I think it's nicer this way.
Yeah, it's a little bit more intimate.
It's a podcast now, people. That's what this is now. So anyway, when we met with Jonathan Kreisel, who's the director, producer, and showrunner, he really came in and he said Portland is the third character in the show. So that really kind of made things very, very clear to us. Jonathan Kreisel had come, I'd known him from his work with Tim and Eric, and at the time he was directing some of the digital shorts for SNL, and he also had a character to his directing style. You know, sketch comedy has evolved in sort of the digital era, and there was a lot of comedy that came out of Fred and Carrie's improvisations, and then a lot of comedy that came out of Jonathan's direction and editing style, because Jonathan actually started as an editor. And so we started seeing different kind of rhythms of comedy than, you know, I think anyone had ever really put into a sketch comedy show. So all of those things, I think, contribute to what I think of as the character of that show.
Right, the holistic sort of sense of it. Okay. Great. I want to sort of step back, and I absolutely want to get to questions because at some point quickly because of time. But there's a lot of artists that have come through the festival that have had a lot of success with IFC, and Bong premiering on the network last year being chief among them. Talk a little bit about when somebody brings you a new project, the sort of the